Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most incredible journeys in human history, a story all about dreaming big, pushing through the impossible, and taking one small step that literally changed the world. Let's get into it. You know these words. We've all heard them. Spoken by Neil Armstrong the second his boot hit that fine, dusty surface of the moon. It's a single sentence that, for a moment, just captured the imagination of the entire planet. But here's the thing. That one step wasn't just a step. It was the finish line of a journey that started decades earlier, a journey fueled by a childhood dream and forged through trials you can barely even imagine. So really, what did it take? Well, our story doesn't start in a rocket ship. Nope, it starts in a tiny propeller plane, way up over Ohio, where a young boy's obsession with the sky was just about to take off. So get this, it all kicks off back in 1936. A 6-year-old Neil Armstrong gets his first airplane ride, and boom, that was it. He was completely hooked. His whole teenage life became about aviation. He was building model planes, reading every flight magazine he could get his hands on, and by 16, he already had his student pilot's license. Armstrong grew up to be an incredible test pilot. You know, one of those guys pushing machines to their absolute limits in our atmosphere. But for someone like him, the horizon just wasn't enough. He was looking for the next level, a new frontier to conquer. But getting from the sky to the stars, that required passing a test that would break most of us. The price of admission to space was absolutely brutal. It demanded everything, the absolute peak of human endurance. And that was his goal. He said it out loud. When he joined the space program in 1965, he had his eyes on the ultimate prize. But, saying you're going to do it and actually doing it, well, those are two very, very different things. The training regimen was just unbelievably punishing. These guys had to endure constant, dizzying spinning to get used to zero-G. They had to withstand the crushing G-forces of launch and re-entry. They were subjected to these unbearable mechanical noises, and they had to walk for hours and hours in those heavy, clumsy spacesuits. The physical toll was just immense. The feeling that your body might just shatter, that you can't open your eyes, that your limbs won't move. That wasn't a one-time thing. And the crazy part? For these trainees, this all just became commonplace. Just another day at the office. Seriously, just think about the job posting for astronaut. You need an aerospace engineer who can also fly a space shuttle, a master planner for complex journeys, a scientist who can execute missions without a single mistake. Oh, and on a personal level, you just need to be in peak physical and mental condition with this deep, burning love for exploring the unknown. No big deal, right? So after years of all that relentless prep, all that training, the moment finally arrives. The mission that would define an entire generation was officially go for launch. And the timeline itself is just breathtaking. Apollo 11 launches on July 16, 1969. They travel for more than 100 hours through that black void. On July 21st, they land and make history. And by July 24th, this incredible voyage is over, with a safe splashdown in the Pacific. And what a journey of contrasts. The launch was this symphony of controlled violence, a deafening roar, a fiery red tail cutting through the sky. But the second they left our atmosphere, all of that was gone. Replaced by a silence so deep it's hard to imagine, surrounded by the black velvet of space and the gray, silent desolation of the moon. And as he was floating there, in that quiet, looking back at our planet, his first thought wasn't about the mission or the tech. It was just this simple, deeply human reaction. It is so beautiful. He was seeing his home, our home, from this completely alien world. Once they were actually on the surface, their movements were almost dreamlike. They were leaping around, kind of like kangaroos in that low gravity. And for 2.5 hours, they were scientists on another planet, scooping up samples, taking those iconic photos, and setting up equipment for the future. Armstrong's step might have been his alone, but he wasn't up there by himself. Not really. He was standing on the shoulders of a massive, unseen army that made the whole thing possible. 400,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many people, an estimated 400,000 people, worked to put a man on the moon. It's just staggering. So that one small step, it wasn't just Neil Armstrong's achievement. It was the crowning achievement of an entire army of scientists, engineers, and technicians. And right at the heart of that army were the aerospace engineers. These were the mission architects, the massive ground crew working 24/7. While the astronauts were hurtling through space, these engineers were glued to their instruments back on Earth, solving problems in real time and basically acting as their lifeline. It really shows you the two critical roles, right? You've got the pioneer, the astronaut. They're the face of the mission, taking on huge personal risk to go explore the unknown. But then you have the architect, the engineer. They're the backbone of the mission, solving every problem from the ground to make sure the pioneer gets there and back safely. Even after all of it, Armstrong was so humble and always looking ahead. He once joked that someday people would fly back to the moon and just wipe away his famous footprints without a second thought. It just shows you where his head was at. It was never about his own fame, it was always about the next giant leap. And that's what I want to leave you with. In any huge undertaking, you've got the people who face the danger head-on, and you've got the people who work tirelessly to ensure they come back safe. The high-risk explorer or the mission-critical engineer, the pioneer or the architect. Which role would you choose?